Hi everybody, I'm Mike Garska with SuccessToolChest.com and FindAMentor.com. Welcome to this week's Help Me Communicate, where I help you be a better communicator. This week I'm going to talk about how to effectively communicate when dealing with your own intense emotion when it's been triggered. Have you ever been so angry or frustrated you said or did something that you later wish you hadn't? What do you do when you're triggered with intense emotion like anger or frustration? Do you yell? Do you shut off and close off? And do you avoid? Do you know how to calm yourself and access and react with confidence? Do you know how, or would you like to develop those tools inside you so that you can respond when respond effectively when you're triggered with intense anger, frustration, or fear? What would it be like if you had the tools inside you and you knew exactly how to deal with that intense emotion? What would that be like when you were communicating in tough situations? If you could just understand that intense emotion, deal with it instantly, and then come back and deal with your conversation effectively. Would that be a good thing? You bet it would. So today, I'm going to teach you how to deal with that intense emotion when it's triggered. So we're going to go through a few steps. The first thing that we're going to do, I'll give you a quick overview here, is to pause, stop, zip it, stop talking, take a break. We'll give you a couple tips on how to detach from that intense emotion or ground it out. And then we want to analyze what's going on for us so that we gain some composure, and then we go back into the conversation and deal with it. That's the basic outline of what we want you to do. So the first thing to do is to pause. Now, what happens with people when we're intensely triggered and our emotions spike and we feel it through our whole body is at the same time that our emotional intensity rises, our ability to reason and deal with things effectively takes a dive to the same degree. So if we're intensely triggered emotionally, we are intensely losing our ability to reason effectively. And when we first trigger, that reason takes a dive. It does not come back until the emotion calms level. The emotion levels out. So we get emotionally triggered, and our reason dives. As our emotions come back down to even keel, our reason comes back up. And then we're able to do things from a calm, collected, sure-footed, confident place. So when your first rule of thumb, when you're triggered emotionally, intensely, stop, pause, zip it, stop talking. If you need to, you can say to the person, look, I'm triggered right now. I'm angry. I'm frustrated, whatever the feeling is. I need a break. I'll come back to this in 5 minutes, or I'll come back to this tomorrow. But I can't talk about it right now. And then after we do that and we set that expectation, or we just get away, then a couple of little quick techniques you can do to calm yourself down. One, breathe. Take 5 deep breaths, okay? That gets you into a calmer state. Go for a walk is another alternative. Go for a walk and analyze things. Take your break. Go away. Phone somebody that you could find that will support you, that you can just vent with. But get that emotion under control. Don't continue on in the conversation when you're emotionally triggered. That's the first step, okay, is to calm yourself down. The second step then is to detach. And then the third step is to analyze. Once we're detached from ourselves, we actually want to detach from ourselves in this process. Then we want to analyze it and gain some composure, know exactly what's going on for us, and then we can go back and deal with that intense situation. So let me give you an example of what detachment means. Detachment means separating from ourselves. I'll share a quick story about an intense detachment situation. It's a neighbor of mine that I had a few years ago. And we were both doing yard work in the backyard, doing some gardening. And he was on his side of the fence, I was on my side of the fence, a little short chain link, 4-foot fence. And we're both doing our yard work. It was time for a break. And like it happened a few times in the past, we struck up a conversation and had a conversation. And John says to me, he says, Mike, I'm going to share this with you. He says, it was a very intense time. I'm a veteran, and it was World War II. And I was an officer in the Canadian Army, and they captured us, the Japanese captured us and put me in a prisoner of war camp, and because I was an officer, they interrogated me. And so he said, I'm sitting in this little interrogation room with these two interrogators, and they're torturing me. He says they're putting needles up my fingernails, they're stretching my body into contortions. That it was so painful. The pain was so intense that at one point I actually found myself out of my body. I'm up in the top corner of this room, and I'm looking down at myself and these two interrogators. He says it was the only way I could deal with the pain, and the only way I could hold on to my discipline of not disclosing information. So he actually not only detached from his thought and emotional process, he detached from his physical senses and feelings, physical senses and physical feelings in order to control the situation inside him. When we're triggered with intense emotion, we're in pain. That's the reality. And when we're in pain, we do have the ability to detach and separate from that pain. Eckhart Tolle, who wrote a book called The Power of Now, talks about detachment into an awareness self. We can all detach from ourselves and look down on ourselves from a different perspective and from a higher self or a higher awareness self and analyze what's going on. And once we're triggered and we've stopped, okay, we've taken that break, then it's time to detach and it's time to analyze. And what do you analyze? Well, the process that you want to analyze is the human interaction process. Analyze your hip. Remember, I've talked about this numerous times. As humans, when we're communicating, we go through a 5-step process. One of our 5 physical senses kicks in. We sense something. Typically, when we're communicating, we're hearing or seeing something. The other 3 senses, sometimes we're tasting or we're touching or we're smelling. But when we're communicating, we're hearing and seeing things. And so what we want to do is analyze. What did I just see, hear, and witness? Okay? And then we want to say, what were my thoughts about that? What do I think about what happened? How do I feel about what's going on here? And what's my intention? Now, when we're analyzing this intention part of the process, remember, there's always a couple of levels of intention. Now, when we're really angry, often our intention is to make the other person really angry because we want them to feel the same thing as us so that they don't next time make me feel this way. But the underlying intention is so that they next time don't do this and I prevent myself from feeling this way. The underlying intention in all people, and last week I published at the blog at successtoolchest.com the basic human needs and intentions list. Humans are basically good. We all have basic needs, okay? We have basic needs for connection, for acceptance, for love, for acknowledgement. We have basic needs for friendship. We have all these basic needs. There's a full page of basic needs. And all of our intentions go down to those basic needs. And so when we're in this detachment part of the process, we want to get to that underlying intention. And so in our detachment, we're analyzing what we sensed, what we saw and heard, how we think about it, what we feel about it, and what our basic intention is. After we've analyzed what's going on and we're calm and we're cool and we're collected, then we want to go back into the conversation and share that human interaction process and then find out what the other person's human interaction process is in response to what we just shared. Now, let me give you an example of a really intense situation that happened for me back in my 20s. It was the first time I was ever fired from a job. And after I was fired from that job, I started my own business. I quit working for other companies. Having said that, I'd worked for many companies, and in every job I'd ever worked at, I'd been promoted and moved up very quickly. And in this particular job, I was working for an industrial fastener company. A year earlier, or 8 months earlier, they had lured me away from another job. I was working in industrial rental equipment sales. The company had just made me a sales manager. I had my company car, my expense account. We had access to a corporate plane that we could use for out-of-town sales calls. So I was always home for dinner every night, and it was a really good job. I'd just been promoted. These guys in Vancouver decided they were a specialty fastener company. They made special nuts and bolts out of special metals and special sizes and all that. And they were in Vancouver. They wanted to open in Alberta. I knew the sales manager. I'd helped them out on a couple of things. And so I was their first choice when they considered opening in Alberta. They phoned me up. They said, Mike, come out to Vancouver. We want to interview you. I said, I'm not really that interested. He said, there's a ticket out there. It's a free trip. Come out and talk to me. So I went out and I talked to him. And they made me a heck of an offer. They bumped my wage up from where I was, what I was making. They gave me all the same benefits, car, expense account, and all that kind of stuff. But not only did they give me a big raise, about a 20-30% increase, they offered me a piece of the action from anything sold out of the Alberta stores, as long as I hit their targets in the first year. So they gave me a target to hit in the first year. If we hit those targets, from the second year on, I was going to get a piece of the action. It was a great deal. 8 months into the program, we hit the annual target, 4 months ahead of schedule. In fact, we were beating the sales that they were doing out in Vancouver, and they'd been in business 10 years. So the owner phones me up and says, hey, Mike, I'm coming into town tomorrow. Congratulations, we hit our target already for the year. He says, we're having a little bit of struggle financially because we're financing all these orders. But come up and visit, come up and see me tomorrow night at my hotel before we go into the office the next morning. So I'm excited. I'm thinking, geez, I'm going to find out the details of this new situation. So I go up to the hotel room where Ted's staying. First thing Ted says to me when I sit down, he says, Mike, you're fired. I said, what? I'm fired. He says, yeah, you're stealing from the company. I said, what do you mean I'm stealing from the company? He says, look, I got 2 receipts here. You filled the car up with gas, the same station, the same day. What are you filling your wife's car up with gas? You're stealing gas from the company? I said, Ted, I phoned you about that. I remember it clearly. I had a rental car that day. The company car was in for service. Before I took the rental car back, I filled it up with gas. When I picked the company car up, it was empty, so I filled it up with gas. My human interaction process in that moment, and I'd learned about this awareness of communicating effectively and being aware of ourselves. So when I filled this car up with gas, I went through a human interaction process. My sense was that, I just filling my car up with gas. My thought was I just filled up the other car with gas. My feeling was, geez, I got a fear that I might be looked at as being stealing from the company. And so my intention was that I did not want to be accused of stealing. So my action became to phone the owner. I phoned Ted. I said, hey, Ted, watch on the credit card statement. It'll be coming through. I filled the car up twice with gas today at the same station. So just to let you know, I had the rental car and I had my car, and I gave him the story. So I shared that back with him the day he told me I was fired. He says, that doesn't matter. Well, at this point, up in the hotel room, he's telling me I'm fired. I explained to him that I wasn't stealing. He remembered the situation. He still said I'm fired. I'm angry. I'm pissed. So when we're emotionally charged, I know that the best thing to do is to postpone the conversation. I said, well, Ted, I'm really angry right now. I'm not going to talk about this further. I'm going to go home. I'm going to think about this, and I'll call you in the morning. And so that's what I did. I get up and I'm walking out the room, and as I'm walking out of the hotel room, Ted says to me, oh, by the way, bring my car back to me first thing tomorrow morning. Well, my human interaction process, when I heard that, and like I said, we go through a human interaction process numerous times as we're in an interaction with another person, and so are they. They're sensing, thinking, feeling, intending, and acting. I'm sensing, thinking, feeling, intending, and acting. And the action part can be silent, it can be speaking words, it can be reaching out and touching, it can be walking out of the room. In this situation, I heard he wanted his car back. My thought went to, he's treating me unfairly, I'm angry, I'm pissed, I'm going to make him squirm, was my intention. And so my action was to ignore him, and I walked out of the room, and I didn't respond to him. So that was my human interaction process in that moment. So I go home, I tell my wife, she's disappointed. We thought we were getting a big raise and a great new deal. Instead, I find I'm looking for work. I'm the sole income provider. My wife was a stay-at-home mom. We had 2 young kids. You know, I'm a little bit worried. This is all part of the human interaction processes that are going on within me. You know, I'm thinking, geez, I've got to get another job. I've got to support the family. I'm worried about all that. So I think sleep on it overnight, get up in the morning, I phone a couple mentors. One of the first things I do, phone a couple of guys that I respect for their opinion. I said, okay, guys, what do I do? We hit the targets, it's firing me unjustly. The response I was getting, well, you might want to get a lawyer. He says, but you've only worked there 8 months, so by law, they only have to give you 1 week severance. He says they could, both my mentors said, but basically they lured you away. So if you get a lawyer, you'll get 2 or 3 months severance. My thought pattern was, okay, I'm going to avoid the lawyer if I can, avoid spending the money. What I want out of this is I want to be paid out to the end of the year. So I want 4 months pay, which is almost the value of the car. So that was my negotiation. I'm not giving you your car back unless you pay me my 4 months. So I planned my conversation according to that intention. And I planned my conversation according to my hip, and I shared my hip. I phoned him up, Ted, when you told me I was fired, I'm sharing what I sensed. You told me I was fired. I was really angry and really pissed. I thought that you were cheating me out of future income. Okay, so my feelings are angry, and my thoughts are you're cheating me out of future income, and you're treating me unfairly. And my intention is to get fair treatment. And so what I've decided is I will give you your car back when you pay me out my 4 months severance till the end of the year. He answered, Mike, I'll have a check ready for you in an hour. Bring my car back. So within an hour, I take him his car back. He gives me a check for 4 months severance. Planning that conversation and not dealing with that issue up in his hotel room and trying to negotiate when I'm in an intense emotional state was the best thing that I did. I went home, I calmed myself down, I got some outside advice, found out what my rights were, and then I planned my conversation, and I went and had the negotiation. So I detached from what was going on for me. And I separated into an awareness self, and I analyzed what was going on. That's what we want you to do. Before you react, when you're triggered intensely, is first thing to do is to pause. Realize that when we are emotionally charged, our ability to reason is way down. And that's when we do and say things that we wish we hadn't. As the emotion comes back into check, our ability to reason comes back into check, and then we can make wise decisions on how we're going to respond. So when emotionally triggered, the first thing is to say, look, I'm pissed right now. I need a break. I'm not going to deal with this. Now you can try a couple of techniques. 5 deep breaths will help bring the emotion back into check. Go for a walk. That'll help bring the emotion back into check so the reason comes back. You might want to take that break, go phone a friend, at least vent and get that emotional charge done. Often when we just speak our emotion, I'm really angry right now, that grounds it out and helps bring the reason back up. But we want to get back to that reasonable state. And then we want to detach and analyze our HIP, our human interaction process. What did I just see and hear? What did I think about that? How do I feel? What do I really want to go on? Plan that conversation. Then when we go back the next day or in 5 minutes or in an hour or whenever that is, we share that human interaction process. And then the next step is then to inquire about the other person. When you hear me say this, heard me say these words, what did you think? What were your thoughts? How do you feel about that? What do you want? And remember, often when people are triggered emotionally, they have an overlying intention and an underlying intention. We want to get to that underlying intention. The key when you're emotionally triggered is to take that break, to detach, and to analyze. If you take the contact communications program, you get the entire scoop on what to do, how to choose your words. There's a whole process on how we communicate, and there's words to use and words not to use. In the contact program, you learn what words to use, what words not to use. You learn about body language, facial expression, voice tone, all of that kind of stuff. But everything is based on that human interaction process. And if you want, you can download the HIP, the free human interaction process awareness tool at successtoolchest.com. There's a PDF or a video that you can watch. It's free. Go to successtoolchest.com. Just click on the part that says the human interaction process. We also offer a full communications training program there where we take you through a 7-step contact process on, and this is all part of that process: detachment, analyzing, the HIP. We talk about active listening, reflective listening, clarifying, paraphrasing, finding common ground, taking the conversation to the next level. All of that is in the contact program. It's only $200. It's the price of a good concert ticket or a good fight ticket. Is your ability to communicate in those tough situations worth $200 probably. Just a real quick tip. So go to Success Tool Chest, check all that stuff out. If you like this video, like it down below here, share it with your friends. Let us know what you think. If you've got a real difficult conversation that you've got to have, share it down below, and I'll address it in next week's Help Me Communicate. We do this every week, 10 a.m. Wednesday, Mountain Standard Time. If you've got a situation, I'll address that situation. We can talk about. But back to detachment. If you want to practice your detachment in your everyday life. In every conversation that you're having, you are sensing, thinking, feeling, intending, and acting. When you're in a real calm state, practice that detachment. Separate from the situation. Take a break, 30, 40 seconds, a minute. Analyze what you're sensing, thinking, feeling, intending, and how you want to act. And then share that human interaction process. Practice that detachment when you're not emotionally intense. And as you get really good at analyzing your HIP in all situations, then when you get into that situation, when you're triggered emotionally, intensely, you'll be in the habit of that detachment and that analysis. And then you'll be able to deal with those difficult situations with much more ease. I hope you enjoyed today's Help Me Communicate. Please, like I said, like our page on Facebook. Like our stuff at Success Tool Chest. We've done about 25 of these Help Me Communicates now. They're all posted in the Success Tool Chest blog, the different topics that we've talked about every week. They're about 20-minute little presentations here. So go out and make it an awesome day. I hope you enjoyed Help Me Communicate. Practice your detachment. Practice your separating and not reacting when you're emotionally charged so that your reason comes up to an even keel with your emotional state. Go out and make it an awesome day, and we'll see you next week for Help Me Communicate. Bye for now.